Michael says, how will the Texas Stock Exchange affect the overall stock market? Now, Robert, I don't think we've talked about the Texas Stock Exchange on the podcast before. I'm pretty sure the timeline for this stock exchange is 2025 and 2026. So maybe let's take a moment to kind of introduce what this might mean for our listeners as it relates to the traditional New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ, why they did this, how much they're spending on it, some of the backers, right? Some of the investors that are involved. So I'll kick off this conversation. The Texas Stock Exchange is a planned stock exchange intended to be headquartered in downtown Dallas, Texas. It has attracted significant investment with about $120 million raised over 24 investors, including BlackRock and Citadel Securities. This makes the Texas Stock Exchange one of the most well-capitalized new entrants to file for SEC regulation. Now, what's so interesting, in my opinion, Robert, about the Texas Stock Exchange is their whole idea for competition against the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ comes from offering a more business-friendly environment. So they seek to attract companies who are being frustrated with the increasing compliance costs and like the politically influenced sometime listing rules inside of New York. I read that this exchange intends to have all national securities, right? Fully electronic. They've got the primary listings, dual listings, exchange traded products, ADRs, non-US firms, all that other fun stuff that comes with listings. And the goal is to start facilitating trades in 2025 and then to host the first listing in early 2026.
Yeah, I love it. And whenever you can add competition to a market that is as big as the New York Stock Exchange and NASDAQ, I think it is great and it's long overdue. There's been whisperings in some of the articles and some of the stuff on X where this is going to be the BlackRock exchange and they're going to have more control, et cetera, et cetera. But I think the biggest takeaway for me in what I've read up about this is the offering a more business-friendly environment. We have heard for decades that the New York Stock Exchange is very difficult to deal with and that it's just overly laborious and expensive to be able to even file with them for an IPO. So I think having another alternative is going to be great for innovation in the United States, especially if it ushers in a new era of more IPOs, because then it lets these companies, a lot of these tech companies that have stayed private longer, it lets them get in the mix, raise the capital they need to grow faster. And I think it is going to be an incredible era in stocks, IPOs, and just the markets in general when this gets live.
Yeah, and I didn't know this, Robert, when I was doing some research, but Texas is an economic powerhouse. They're home to more Fortune 500 companies than any other state in the United States, which that's just unreal to me. Now, the skepticism, right? What could go wrong with this? So what I've found on the internet, Robert, as it relates to the skepticism, if this is a real thing, is they will only be able to truly compete with the NYSE, with the NASDAQ, and these other exchanges if they have substantial trading volume and market acceptance, right? So you're only an exchange if people are using your exchange, right? Which is now going to be interesting as we already have these powerhouse exchanges that everyone trades, their stocks and equities on. So how's that going to impact it? I'm not sure. At the end of the day, I think it's really cool. I think it's a great idea for innovation. It's great allowing us to have sort of this like more business friendly environment. And maybe we'll see like smaller companies start listing because it's probably a little bit more cheaper, which could be really cool, right? I mean, Amazon was a small company back in the day when they IPO'd in 1994, and now look at them now. So there's a lot of really cool things to look forward to as it relates to the Texas Stock Exchange. So I appreciate your question, Michael.